Pompeii, a city of 20,000 souls, sitting at the foot of a mountain that hasn't moved in centuries. They have theaters, bathhouses, markets full of bread and wine and salted fish. They have painted walls, paved streets, and fountains that run all day. They have everything. And today, August 23rd, 79 AD, they are celebrating. They don't know it yet, but this is the last day Pompeii will ever exist. 31 hours before the eruption, you wake up before sunrise because the city won't let you sleep. Outside, the carts are already moving. Pompeii doesn't wait for the sun. Your house is called a domus. It's built around a central courtyard, the atrium, open to the sky, with a shallow pool in the middle to collect rainwater. The walls are painted, deep reds, yellows, scenes of gods and gardens. For a fisherman, this is not nothing. This is a life built catch by catch, a home earned by the sea. You splash water on your face from a clay basin. You eat whatever bread is left from yesterday, and you step outside. The streets of Pompeii are already alive. You step out into the street and the city is already in full motion. You pass a bakery, and the smell hits you before you even see it. Bread, ash, fire. The baker inside has been awake since before midnight. That's not unusual. You keep walking. You are a fisherman, not a glorious profession, not a powerful one. But the sea doesn't lie to you, and Pompeii always needs fish. You've been out since dawn. Today is a celebration day. The Bay of Naples is calm, the nets come up full. You bring your catch to the docks, sell most of it to the market vendors, and keep the rest. Today you'll need it, because today is the Vulcanalia. You heard someone say it this morning at the docks. An older man, already sorting his nets, telling his son to choose the best fish he had. Not for selling, for Vulcan. You pack up your nets, the morning shift is done, the sun is already high, time to go. 24 hours before the eruption. In exactly 1 day, everything you're about to see will be buried under 4 meters of volcanic rock. But right now, nobody knows that. You make your way through the market. The noise is everywhere. Vendors shouting, chickens in cages. On your way through the street, you notice the fabrics, tunics, linens, curtains, hanging from every window and doorway stretched out under the full sun. It's part of the Vulcanalia, a custom as old as the festival itself. You dry your clothes under the sun to honor the god of fire before asking him not to burn everything down. At the corner, a woman is arguing with a thermopolium vendor about the price of lentil stew. Behind her, 2 men are talking about tonight. I'll throw 2 fish, big ones. Vulcan doesn't care about size. Vulcan cares about everything. They both laugh, but not entirely as a joke. You eat at a thermopolium counter. Lentil stew, a piece of flatbread, hot, cheap, good enough. Then you see something that stops you for a moment. A craftsman across the street lighting a candle at his workbench in the middle of the afternoon. Then another, and another. It's that time of year. The days are getting shorter. Summer is ending, and Pompeii is beginning to work by candlelight. Nobody thinks anything of it. Tomorrow, they'll do the same. Except tomorrow, there won't be a tomorrow. You head to the square. The bonfires are already being lit. The Vulcanalia, every August 23rd, Pompeii, and all of Rome, stops for this. Vulcan is the god of fire, destructive fire, the kind that takes your crops, collapses your buildings, turns everything you built into nothing. You celebrate him not out of love, but out of fear. You give him something before he takes everything. The priests move through the crowd in white robes. The chanting begins. And then, the offerings. You step forward. You hold your fish over the flames and you let go. The crowd watches. The fire takes it. They believe Vulcan is watching, and they are right. After the offerings, the games begin. The Vulcanalia has its own fights. Gladiators, brought in for the festival, face each other in the open square. The crowd surges forward. Everyone is shouting. Everyone is alive. For one afternoon in Pompeii, nothing could possibly go wrong. Then the banquet, tables in the streets, wine, bread, roasted meat. Neighbors you've argued with all year suddenly feel like family. Pompeii knows how to celebrate. It always has. Because underneath their feet, right now, the magma chamber of Mount Vesuvius is holding centuries of pressure. The god they are feeding is not in the sky. He is under the mountain behind them, and he is not appeased. The festival winds down as the sun drops. You walk home through streets now lit by candlelight and oil lamps, every doorway glowing, every window warm. Pompeii has never looked more alive than on the night before it dies. 19 hours before the eruption. On your way home, you pass the Forum. You almost don't stop, but there's a crowd gathered. And in this city, a crowd always means something worth hearing, or at least worth watching. A man is speaking from the steps, a local politician. You've seen his face painted on walls around the city, next to promises you've already forgotten. He's talking about repairs to the aqueduct, about grain prices, about justice. The people around you nod, some cross their arms. One old man near you mutters something under his breath and spits on the marble. This is the Forum, the beating heart of Pompeii, where law is argued, business is sealed, and power is performed in front of an audience that knows exactly how the game works, and plays along anyway. The marble here is white and clean. Columns rise on every side. Statues of emperors look down from their pedestals with expressions that say, "We are always watching." At the far end of the Forum, a small group is celebrating near a decorated altar. You ask someone what's happening. The new emperor, they say, Titus. He's been on the throne for less than 2 months, young, charismatic. The people love him. They say he is generous, that he listens, that he is nothing like his father. You look at the faces of the people celebrating him. They are genuinely happy. Titus has no idea this city exists right now, and tomorrow, neither will anyone else. You walk the rest of the way home in the fading light. 15 hours before the eruption. The sun goes down and you go to the baths. The thermae, Pompeii's public bathhouses, are where the city exhales. The water is warm. The steam rises to the vaulted ceiling. Around you, men are talking over each other about the races, neighbors' debt, whether the garum from the new vendor is as good as the old one. You lean back. You let the heat work through your shoulders. For a moment, the city doesn't feel heavy, and then you feel it. A shudder, subtle but unmistakable. The water in the pool ripples without reason. Your body tenses before your mind does. Around you, the talking stops for exactly one breath. Someone grips the edge of the pool a little tighter. A woman in the next room inhales sharply. Somewhere outside, a dog erupts into barking. 1 second, 2 seconds, and then it stops. Someone laughs first, then everyone does. Another tremor. Of course it is. The ground here has always done this. In 62 AD, it shook so badly it cracked half the city. They rebuilt. Pompeii always rebuilds. So nobody leaves, nobody runs, nobody looks at the mountain. Vesuvius is trying to warn you. You just don't speak that language yet. You dry off. You walk home through the dark streets. You close the door behind you, and you sleep. 7 hours before the eruption. August 24th. You wake up like any other day. The city is already moving. You can hear it. Carts on cobblestone. Vendors setting up. Someone arguing 2 floors below. Pompeii doesn't ease into the morning. It starts at full volume. You splash water on your face. You eat what's left of yesterday's bread. You think about the nets, about the market, about nothing in particular. Outside, the streets are exactly as you left them. The bakers are already working. The fountains are already running. Children are already loud. The sky above the mountain looks a little strange. A thin column of something rising from the peak. Steam, maybe. The mountain does that sometimes. You squint at it for a moment, then you look away. You have things to do. The eruption. You are at the docks. The nets are in your hands. The Bay of Naples is calm. It is a morning like any other. And then you hear it, before you see anything. Before you understand anything, a sound like the sky is splitting open, like something enormous just broke somewhere above the world. You look up, and there it is. A pillar of fire and ash rising above Vesuvius, climbing 15 miles into the sky, growing wider, growing darker. With every second that passes, in minutes the light changes, not like a storm coming in, not like clouds, like someone reached up and removed the sun. Then the rocks start falling, small at first. Pumice, light, porous, raining from the sky like the world is coming apart at the seams. People around you freeze. Then they run. You drop the nets, you run. Your legs know what your mind is still refusing. This is not stopping. The streets are chaos. Some run toward the gates, some run toward the sea. Some go back inside, pulling doors shut, waiting for it to pass. It will not pass. The ash thickens. The sky turns orange, then black. Roofs groan under the weight of falling debris. Somewhere, a collapse. You run for anything that isn't here. You run without looking back. Your only option is to outrun something that cannot be outrun. The city that never stopped. The bread still in the ovens, the wine still in the cups, the fish still in the nets. Everything exactly where someone left it, waiting for a morning that never came. 20,000 people woke up that morning thinking about bread, about fish, about the races, about tomorrow. The God they fed with fire took everything and left only silence. 1669 years after the eruption. In 1748, workers digging in southern Italy found something beneath the earth. Stone walls, painted frescoes, cobblestone streets, an entire city frozen in time. Pompeii had been buried for over 16 centuries, and it was exactly as they left it. The bakeries, the thermopolia, the forum, the fountains that once ran all day, all of it, still there. Perfectly preserved beneath 4 meters of volcanic rock, and among the ruins, the shapes of people, hollow spaces left in the ash where human bodies once were. Archaeologists poured plaster into those spaces, and the people of Pompeii came back, still holding what they were holding, still reaching for what they couldn't reach, frozen in the last second they ever lived. Pompeii is not just a ruin, it is a question about how thin the line is between an ordinary morning and the end of everything. Mount Vesuvius is still there, still active, still watching over the city it buried. 3 million people live in its shadow today, just like the 20,000 who did on August 23rd, 79 AD, celebrating, working, living, not knowing. Would you have run? Let us know in the comments. Would you have made it out of Pompeii? What would you have done differently? And while you're down there, tell us which moment in history you want us to take you to next. Ancient Egypt, World War II, the Black Death, Industrial London. The choice is yours. If you made it this far, you already know what to do. Subscribe, like, and we'll see you in the next one.